There is no such thing as an off-season anymore in the NFL, and if you are a Pittsburgh Steelers fan trying to catch your breath after the postseason ended, you already know the reality. The games may have stopped, but the machine never does. The calendar has flipped, and the next chapter is already in motion. And this timeline is going to define everything about how the Steelers build toward 2026. The first major checkpoint hits from February 23rd through March 2nd, with the NFL Scouting Combine at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, Indiana. This is where front offices lay the groundwork. This is where evaluations sharpen. This is where interviews matter just as much as 40 times. For a franchise like the Pittsburgh Steelers, known for building through the draft and trusting their scouting department, this week is not just routine. It is foundational. Every conversation in Indianapolis could influence what happens when the spotlight turns to Pittsburgh in April. But even before that, February 17th opened a critical window. From that date through 4 p.m. New York time on March 3rd, clubs have the ability to designate franchise or transition players. That is not just a technicality. That is leverage. That is roster control. By March 3rd, decisions must be made. Do you lock in a cornerstone piece with the franchise tag? Do you protect a key contributor with the transition designation? Those are high-stakes calls, and they shape the flexibility heading into free agency. Then we move into one of the most intense stretches of the entire offseason. From March 9th at noon through 3 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds p.m. New York time on March 11th, teams can begin contacting and negotiating with the certified agents of players who are set to become unrestricted. Free agents, once their 2025 contracts expire, this is the legal tampering window, and it is where the real groundwork for free agency is laid. Deals are discussed, frameworks are agreed upon, and if a player is unrepresented, he can speak directly with the new club's front office officials, excluding the head coach and coaching staff, as long as the club confirms his status. However, no unrestricted free agent can officially sign with a new team until 4 p.m. New York time on March 11th. And that moment, March 11th at 4 p.m., is when everything officially resets. The 2026 league year begins. Free agency signing period opens. The trading period for 2026 begins. This is when contracts become official. This is when trades can be processed. This is when the roster truly starts to take shape for the new season. Every Steelers fan knows that the hours surrounding that deadline can completely shift expectations. As the league moves forward, March 29th through April 1st brings the annual league meeting in Phoenix, Arizona. This is where ownership, executives, and league officials gather, where broader decisions about the league's direction are discussed, and where strategic conversations continue behind the scenes. Then attention turns back to preparation. Clubs that hired a new head coach after the end of the 2025 regular season can begin off-season workout programs on April 6. Teams with returning head coaches, including stability on the sideline, begin those programs on April 20th. These dates matter because they mark the beginning of on-field structure, strength programs, meetings, and the slow build toward training camp. April is packed with deadlines. April 15th is the cutoff for clubs to time, test, visit, interview, or conduct physical examinations with draft-eligible players at the club facility. April 17th is the deadline for restricted free agents to sign offer sheets. April 22nd becomes another major cutoff. The prior club must exercise its right of first refusal to restricted free agents who signed offer sheets. And it is also the final day for teams to evaluate draft-eligible players through visits, interviews, and physicals at any location. And then it happens. April 23rd through April 25th, the 2026 NFL Draft takes place in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Not somewhere else, not on the road, in Pittsburgh. The spotlight of the league will be on the city. For Steelers fans, this is more than just a draft. It is a showcase. It is an opportunity to see the next wave of talent announced on home soil. Every pick will feel amplified after the draft. May 1 brings another key decision point: the deadline for clubs to exercise the fifth-year option for players selected in the first round of the 2023 draft. That is, long-term planning in action. Shortly after, teams can hold their 3-day post-draft rookie minicamp on one of the 2 weekends following the draft, either May 1st to 4th or May 8th to 11th. May 11th marks the beginning of rookie football development programs, and May 13th to 17th features the NFLPA Rookie Premiere in Los Angeles, California. Development starts immediately. By June 1st and June 15th, we see specific deadlines involving restricted free agents and qualifying offers, including the June 1st tender and the ability to substitute a lower June 15th tender while retaining exclusive negotiating rights. These are technical, detailed mechanisms within the CBA, but they directly impact roster management and financial flexibility. Then July arrives, and with it, final decisions. July 15th at 4 p.m. ET is the deadline for any club that designated a franchise player to sign that player to a multi-year extension. After that, he can only sign a one-year contract for the 2026 season and cannot be extended until after the final regular season game. In mid-July, training camp begins to open for rookies, followed by specific reporting timelines for first-year players, veteran quarterbacks, injured players, and eventually the full veteran roster. July 22nd at 4 p.m., ET closes the signing period for certain unrestricted free agents who received a UFA tender, locking exclusive negotiating rights back to the prior club under specific conditions. When you step back and look at this entire timeline, you realize something. Every single date is a pressure point. Every deadline forces a decision. Every window opens an opportunity. From Indianapolis in February to the draft in Pittsburgh in April, from free agency in March to training camp in July, this is not downtime. This is construction season. So here's the real question for you. As a Steelers fan watching this unfold, looking at this full roadmap to 2026, which stretch of this calendar do you believe will have the biggest impact on shaping the team's identity for the season ahead? When you really study this roadmap, you start to understand that the most dangerous assumption a fan can make is thinking that the draft alone defines the future. Yes, April 23rd through April 25th in Pittsburgh will feel massive. Yes, hearing those names called on home soil will create unforgettable moments. But by the time the Steelers are on the clock in the first round, so much of the foundation will already have been poured. Think about what happens between March 9th and March 11th. That negotiation window is where relationships are tested and where leverage is real. Front offices are working the phones. Agents are exploring the market. And while nothing can be signed until 4 p.m., New York time on March 11th, everyone around the league knows that frameworks are built during those hours. If the Steelers want to be aggressive, that is when the tone is set. If they choose to be selective and disciplined, that is when that identity becomes clear too. The official start of the 2026 league year on March 11th is not just paperwork, it is direction. Then layer in the trade market opening at that exact same time, that creates another dimension. Free agency is one path, trades are another. Draft capital can move, veterans can be acquired, contracts can be restructured, and every move has ripple effects that carry directly into April. Now look at the franchise and transition tag window that closes on March 3rd. Those decisions are quiet on the surface, but loud in impact. If a player is tagged, that shapes cap space, negotiation timelines, and long-term planning, and if a player is not tagged, that signals confidence or risk tolerance. Those are strategic statements before free agency even begins. By the time the annual league meeting takes place from March 29th through April 1st in Phoenix, Arizona, most of the major early free agency moves around the league will already be known. That gathering becomes about alignment, ownership, executives, competition committee discussions, broader league issues. All of it feeds into the bigger picture. Even if fans do not see immediate headlines from that meeting, it is part of the ecosystem that shapes the season. And then April turns into a sprint. April 15th is the last day for in-house visits and evaluations of draft-eligible players at the club facility. That means every board must be tightening up. Every medical evaluation must be finalized. Every interview must be weighed carefully. By April 22nd, when all interviews, visits, and physicals with draft prospects must be complete at any location, there are no more excuses. The draft board is locked in. Hosting the 2026 NFL Draft in Pittsburgh adds another layer of intensity. This is not just about making the right pick, it is about doing it with the league's spotlight fixed on your city. The environment will be electric. The energy will be different. And for the Steelers, the responsibility is clear. Maximize that opportunity. After the draft, May 1st forces another forward-looking decision with the fifth-year option deadline for first-round selections from the 2023 draft. That is about belief. It is about projection. Do you commit long-term based on what you have seen so far? Or do you wait and accept the risk? That choice tells fans a lot about how the organization views its own talent. Rookie minicamp shortly after the draft is where the first real glimpse happens. It is not about polished performance. It is about habits. It is about how quickly draft picks and undrafted signings absorb terminology, structure, and expectations. May 11th kicks off rookie football development programs, reinforcing that the transition from college to professional football is immediate and structured. The NFLPA Rookie Premiere in Los Angeles from May 13th to 17th adds another layer of exposure and adjustment for incoming players. June brings the more technical elements of roster control with the June 1st tender and the June 15th tender provisions for restricted free agents. These are not glamorous topics, but they are tools. They allow clubs to manage qualifying offers and retain negotiating rights while adjusting financial commitments. Smart use of those tools can preserve flexibility heading into the summer, and then July changes the atmosphere entirely. July 15th at 4 p.m., ET is the hard stop for franchise players to sign multi-year extensions. After that, the door closes until after the regular season. That is a pressured deadline. It forces clarity. Either long-term security is achieved or the season moves forward under a one-year structure. Mid-July opens training camp for rookies, and shortly after, veterans begin to report under specific timelines defined in the CBA. Veteran quarterbacks and injured players can be required to report up to 5 days before the full veteran roster, provided the club has opened camp for rookies. That staggered structure creates a gradual build. It allows teaching, it allows conditioning, it allows leaders to establish tone before everyone is on the field together. By July 22nd at 4 p.m. ET, the signing period ends for unrestricted free agents who received a UFA tender from their prior club. After that, exclusive negotiating rights return under defined terms. That closes another door and signals that the focus has fully shifted to preparing the roster already in place. When you line all of this up chronologically, what stands out is that nothing is random. Every date connects to the next. Every deadline feeds into roster composition, cap management, player development, and ultimately performance in the fall. The offseason is not empty space between games. It is a sequence of calculated decisions. If you lean toward free agency, it is because you understand how quickly momentum can shift in March. A single signing right at 4 p.m. New York. Time on March 11th can redefine expectations. The opening of the league year is not just symbolic, it is transactional. It is immediate, contracts become official, trades are processed, and the depth chart starts to crystallize. When the Steelers step into that window, every move will signal intent. Are they prioritizing stability? Are they targeting specific needs with urgency? Or are they positioning themselves to let the draft do the heavy lifting? The tone of the entire offseason can be shaped in those first 48 to 72 hours, but if your answer is the draft in Pittsburgh, that perspective carries weight too. Hosting the 2026 NFL Draft from April 23rd through April 25th changes the emotional temperature of the moment. Every selection will feel amplified because it is happening at home. The league will be watching the city. The fan base will be present in full force. And for the front office, the challenge will be balancing long-term discipline with the electricity of the environment. Draft picks are not just names announced on a stage, they are investments that tie directly into the franchise's identity for years. When those names are called in Pittsburgh, the expectation level automatically rises. Then there's the argument for the quieter, strategic decisions. The franchise or transition tag window that closes on March 3rd, the 5th-year option deadline on May 1, the June 1st tender and June 15th tender, mechanisms that allow financial recalibration while retaining negotiating rights. These are not headline-grabbing moves, but they are foundational. They determine flexibility, they determine leverage, they determine how aggressive or conservative the organization can be when opportunity appears. And do not underestimate July 15th at 4 p.m.